Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and welcome to Blather 252. Doomsday is annoying. We're going to run out of food in 1980. We're going to run out of water by 1995. The world will freeze in the coming ice age. The world will melt with the greenhouse effect. We're running out of oil in 2015. China will invade Taiwan. The world is coming to an end in 2012. Planes will fall out of the skies and your ATMs won't work on January 1st, 2000. Oh, yes. Don't forget the end of all species, the rapture, the hole in the ozone layer, the polar ice caps, rainforests, elephants, the Bay Smelt, and the spotted owl. Not to mention the bird flu, the swine flu, the bird flu again, and the ever present COVID. And the markets are going to crash. And the day after the nuclear winter sets in. Every day, some idiot comes up with some novel doomsday scenario. Armageddon in 1,000 variants in installments. And every day, millions of morons fall prey to the hype. Survivalists, cold hoarders, and run-of-the-mill depressed idiots wail about the immediacy of the end. And the end, of course, never comes. Worry not! Before you can celebrate your deliverance, another calamity will be announced as grifters ask for your donations or sell you panaceas, offering a tsunami of bullshit for your sacrifices. And the world keeps a turning. No need to duck and cover. Rather, a desperate need to disconnect from the annoying background noise of a tuneless chorus of chicken diddles. Celebrate life, pass on the champagne, and say, with us, to all who peddle fear and despair, in the immortal words of Dante Alighieri, ma vaffanculo va! Happy New Year, everybody! The best is yet to come. This is Sol Montes Bradley, the largest human repository of useless information, from my golden cage in Florida. And with me, right there, Thomas Victor, the growing beard man. He refuses to show his beard until it's packed full and in restored glory. And from Californication, the land of fruits and nuts and flakes and Newsom. That gave me the chills, man. Another place where something is going to cause the sinking of California into the Pacific any moment now. How are you doing, Thomas? What is the doomsday du jour where you're at? Oh, you've been called for jury service?
And it starts tomorrow on the 30th of December.
Who's the son of a bitch who put you on that list?
I have to check in every day for a week, and the week starts tomorrow. And the 31st is a holiday. The first is a holiday.
Yeah.
I mean, oh, and I have to serve in downtown LA. So I have to. It's a 40-mile round trip.
Yes. Are you going to park on Skid Row?
Okay, the last time I was in downtown LA was when I had to go. I had to go prove to the office that I'm a real person. That the address and the name and everything they had was actually me. So I had to take my birth certificate. I had to take all this stuff, and I parked in parking structures that it was like, the first 10 minutes is like $1. You basically you fill up all your time in about an hour, and then you pay like the after an hour you pay like $45 or something. and
Lovely.
everything was like that. And the thing about it was that all the parking structures were full of homeless people, and they all set up their tents. And did you ever hear those tapes of the Bigfoot that was out recorded in the forest? And it was
That's what you were hearing when you came out of the car, right?
yeah. It's a really eerie sound that you can't define. It doesn't sound human. It doesn't sound like an animal. And they were all doing that, and they were all camped next to the elevator. And it was like, so I just walked down the ramps, and there are all these signs saying, no pedestrians on the ramp. And it's like, well, I'm not taking the elevator. So, but yeah, this place is really, it's really something. They're gearing up to running and electing Kamala Harris for governor, and they're going to do it. They're going to do it.
Yeah, actually, in California, that would probably work. It's an internal election of the Democratic Party. Whoever the Democratic Party chooses is going to be the next governor of California. Now, however much I'm sure she has followers, you mean to tell me that the Democratic Party in California is united behind this fucking moron?
Yeah, because okay, the reaction to Trump's victory is still coming in. People are still hysterical. They're crazier this time around than they were in 2016. And they have to get back at Trump by electing Kamala for something. So I predict she's going to win as governor of California, and she'll govern exactly the way she did as vice president.
Yeah, I'm thinking that if they wanted to prove the rest of the country how wonderful it was that we elected Trump and what kind of bullet we dodged, they couldn't do anything better than this. I mean, I I I feel for you, but I'm very happy we're gonna have this kind of spectacle coming from California.
Well, being in California, okay, the Chunk Uyghur from the Young Turks lives in California,
Yes.
and you may or may
Oh,
not.
I thought he lived in La La Land.
You may not may and may not know may or may not know that he appeared with Charlie Kirk on stage
Yes.
at Turning Point USA.
I saw it actually. Yes.
Left, I just saw right before we got on the air. I saw Cenk was being interviewed by a woman who appears on his show very often, and she was criticizing him. He's getting a lot of criticism because what he did was he legitimized conservatism.
He betrayed his gray.
And what Cenk was saying was that if you agree with the conservatives 5%, they welcome you. If you disagree with Democrats 5%, they want to excommunicate you. And this woman proceeded then to do exactly what he was saying. She was accusing him of everything except for,
crucifying him.
Exactly. And it was clear, and it's clear hearing all what do these people call themselves? They call themselves
the Young Turks?
Thought makers. No, people.
Oh, the thought makers, yes.
They're all saying that they lost because they didn't go far enough left. So in 28, they're going to run Ocasio-Cortez. And this is marvelous. There's this former Democratic fundraiser who she's going around being interviewed, and she says the party has collapsed.
Oh, Lee.
Yeah, and
Lee. She's abandoning ship, and they're throwing molten lava at her.
Exactly, and all these people, I mean, you can't accuse Cenk Uyghur of being reasonable when it comes to Trump, but
or anything else for that matter.
well,
Remember when he ran for president in the primaries, in spite of the fact that he doesn't qualify for shit?
yeah, and he said he did, and he could prove it, and well, I mean, it was like he ran for Congress out here, and he didn't. His vote results didn't even appear on the ballot.
Yeah.
The 0% was like it was shared by like a whole bunch of people, and one of them was him.
Yeah.
But all these people are proving exactly what he said. The lack of self-awareness is is what is dooming the Democratic Party. Is that they project everything they're doing, they project it onto conservatives. Okay, right now they're all celebrating because of the conservative debate over H-1B visas. And okay, just my guess is almost nobody who's listening to this has bothered to look up H-1B visas. I just did before we went on the air, and this is amazing. This is the American Immigration Council, and there's a maximum of 85,000 H-1B visas every year.
Yep.
It's a temporary non-immigrant visa category, and it applies only to highly educated foreign professionals. In order to
highly educated, it requires a minimum of a bachelor's degree, but whoever is hired must have bachelor's or master's according to what is standard for that particular position in that particular area.
And before the visa is issued, the employers must prove that this isn't going to displace an American worker with the same qualifications.
Yep. They actually need a certification from the Department of Labor in the state where they're requiring it. And right. The whole thing is supposed to be supervised by the Federal Department of Labor.
And employers must also provide existing workers with notice of their intention to hire an H-1B worker. So basically, these are people who are stepping into gaps that we may have. It's not that the companies, okay, they're not allowed to pay them less.
No.
Okay, they figure out ways to pay them less, but on paper they're not allowed to pay them less.
But it's illegal, and when caught, a number of companies, including Oracle, Disney, Apple, were forced to pay huge fines,
right,
for trying to go around that. And that's the way you do it. You enforce it.
Under this administration, there's not going to be the same shenanigans that there were under Obama, under George W. Bush, and under Biden. So yes, there's a debate over it, but it's a debate that is honestly almost a waste of time. I mean, 85,000 people max per year is nothing, and these are non-immigrant visas. These people
and I'll go a step further, Thomas. It doesn't qualify as a debate. The shrieking arguments of a bunch of characters in X, with the likes of Laura Looney and Steve Bannon on one side, and people with any degree of intelligence saying you're nuts. It's not a debate. And certainly it's not a debate within the Trump movement or a conservative movement or the Republican Party.
Well, Bannon opposes all immigration. And
of course.
I mean, I can't, that would mean I would never have been born. So,
no, Bannon is a piece of shit who will steer crap to cause trouble for Trump every day and twice on Sundays. And then in the end, President Trump comes out and said this H-1B visas, they're great. I have thousands of people with that visa working in our companies. Poof! End of argument.
Well, this is the thing that the Democrats were focusing on that as a way to take attention away from the fact that their party is imploding, because okay, that alternative, the leftist alternate to Twitter, Blue Sky, my brother told me that they have something around 90 million outstanding moderation complaints, because they're all, if you're a leftist who says something. Did you ever see that movie called The Hunt? It was about rich leftists hunting.
Yes.
There's a scene where the leftists are in their bunker, and they're as soon as they start talking, they start fighting. You know, somebody says it's not like he has AIDS, and the other one says, please don't joke about AIDS. It's not funny. It's. And then he says, sorry, guys. And then the woman says, guys. And he goes, sorry, I don't mean to misgender you. And while they're fighting over how to speak to each other, the conservative sneaks up on them, breaks in, and kills them all. So, and that's all based on reality. That's what Blue Sky is, apparently.
That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. But that's fine. They're canceling each other out. And I would like to point out that for all the hullabaloo about H1 visas and O visas, and like I said, no more than a handful of morons raising the issue, with just about everybody with some brains saying, oh, shut up. Until Trump comes in and says, yeah, shut up. I didn't hear calls for cancellation, for cancellations, except from 2 or 3 assholes who are Democrats who just recently discovered Trump, but apparently not long enough that they have been able to shed their Democrat ways. And the ones that you and I have been complaining since 2018, the Q-tards, the MAGA-tards, the collectivist, racist, bigoted retards who claim to be Trump supporters and don't even have a basic understanding of what the man is trying to accomplish.
Well, without immigrants, we wouldn't have the thermobaric bomb. Without immigrants, we wouldn't have. My ear, nose, and throat specialist is a Vietnamese boat person, and he's considered the greatest ENT on the West Coast. So he's the country's best expert on Meniere's disease, and because of his treatment and the way he diagnosed me immediately. Normally, if you get a Meniere's diagnosis, you have to go through all these ridiculous tests, but I was able to describe the symptoms so precisely that he said, you have Meniere's disease, and the treatment worked, and I haven't had a rotational vertigo attack in years. Yep. So he came here from Vietnam as a child, and the people who were causing all the trouble, number one, they're illegal aliens. Number two, they were criminals and nutcases in their home country. Yeah. So they have nothing to do with my ENT. And
we have 13 million of them to go before I even worry about the small percentage of people who violate H-1B visas.
Well, the generally speaking, the people who get their H-1B visas are not setting people on fire on subway trains. No. They weren't criminals.
Another case this week. Yeah, no, they're not raping girls in Montana. They're not setting people on fire. They're not taking over apartment buildings, and they're all vetted, for crying out fucking loud. That is part of the process. It is a lengthy process. When I had the tour operator, I got a couple of employees on H-1B visas. I'm talking about the mid-90s. It cost me a fucking fortune, even though the fees were much lower then than they are now. Now they're paying $1,500 for a fee that cost me $150. But attorneys, do you have any idea how complicated? You think that a small business owner has the time or the inclination to find out how to navigate the bureaucratic waters of obtaining an H-1B visa and the labor certification that goes with it and all that jazz? Bullshit. So it cost me back then, each one of them about $3,500 in attorney's fees alone. And of course, I needed them because I needed people with a specific expertise, not fucking genius, not Einsteins or von Browns. I needed somebody with specific knowledge of markets in southern Argentina. I was organizing cruises to the Antarctic, and in Europe. And you need people with a specific knowledge. You're not going to find it in Rutgers University.
Yeah, and
for me, it was bringing those couple of people here to work within my organization or opening a branch over there and transfer people over there so that they could handle it locally. I don't think people understand how business works.
Also, speaking of immigrants, okay, I've been here off and on since 1967, and at one point, all the 7-Elevens were owned by Korean immigrants.
Yes.
Then the Koreans moved up out of it, and they were taken over by Indian immigrants.
Yes.
The Indians spent even less time owning 7-Eleven franchises, and now they're in my area.
No, it's Middle Easterners.
All owned by Nepalese, and it's these people are working their way up. They're not selling their franchises to go out and become bums and sleep in cardboard boxes.
Mm-mm.
So, you know, I have no problem with immigrants. It's
in the 80s, every 24-hour deli in New York was owned by Koreans. And I figure out why some things were the way they were, because you had the Koreans with the 24-hour delis, and Chinese with the newsstands, and Pakistanis as cab drivers who replaced the Poles, and Russians who replaced the Italians and Irish. And the thing about these places like the 7-Eleven is you don't need a mastery of English to be a cashier at 7-Eleven. People bring you the goods, you scan them, the number pops up. If you know the number is fine, if not, it's okay. You collect the cash, off they go. You don't have to have a conversation. You're not selling insurance. So that is usually the first stepping stone for a new wave of immigrants. And as they learn the language, as their kids go to school, they grow either into retirement and their kids are now physicians or engineers, or they go into other types of business where they can put their skills to better use. It's always been like that.
Mm-hmm.
Why should anybody be bothered by it?
Well, they're only bothered by it because they're conflating illegal immigration by, you know, in so
who conflates illegal immigration with legal immigration? Bigots, whether they're Democrats or Laura Loomer.
They do. So they're conflating illegal immigration and legal immigration, and they don't understand that you know, people don't come to this country legally in order to, you know, end up in homeless cities. The legal immigrants, generally speaking, have a massively superior work ethic to a hell of a lot of Americans. You know, Bahamian and African Black immigrants oftentimes view American Blacks with a certain level of you know, confusion, because they come here and they make a success out of their lives, and they say, you know, the racism you're always talking about doesn't exist. And it's true. If you look at the incomes of native born Black Americans and Black immigrants, there's a hell of a disparity.
Huge.
Yeah.
Huge. And the income levels of Africa, of recent African immigrants, compares to those of Asians, and tend to be better than the average white population.
Yeah, the median individual mean income for whites is lower than that of Bahamian immigrants, and,
Yes.
and you know that's astonishing. But
Well,
you know,
that it makes sense to you and me, doesn't it?
no, I mean, I used to watch those home improvement shows, and they would always choose mansions, of course, because nobody wants to see home improvement of a trailer or whatever.
Yeah, townhouses.
But every time the mansion was owned by a Black couple, they had a Bahamian, you know, or Jamaican accent, and their kids were all acclimated. I saw one family; they had 4 daughters, and all 4 daughters were doctors, and they wanted to surprise their parents with a room that was, you know, unused, that would be transformed into something. But here's this family of immigrants who still have their accent, and they raised all 4 daughters to be doctors. You know, talk about an American success story.
Oh, they're plenty. But anyway, the point is that everybody's trying to make a tsunami in a teacup with this H-1B visa spat on X. I'll bet you 10 to 1 that 90% of the American public hasn't even heard of that this.
No, I mean, okay, Brian Stetzer famously or infamously said that you should never do your own research and you should leave it up to people like him. But a striking minority of Americans do their own research, and I would hazard to guess that the majority of, maybe all of the Americans who do their own research are conservatives, because my brother saw a guy walking around Las Vegas and interviewing people about, you know, the election and everything. And they were all idiots. They didn't know anything. They couldn't answer any of his questions. And he asked them, "What news do you watch?" CNN and MSNBC. That's it. So they did what Brian Stelter, whatever his name is. I think it's
Stelter, the potato.
Yeah, they did what he demanded, and as a result, they're dummies. But imagine someone saying that it's dangerous to do your own research. I've also heard.
Well, for Brian Stelter, it is dangerous if people did their own research.
Well, I mean, those shows are still hammering. Those networks are still hemorrhaging viewers. So,
Yep.
You know, they better do something. If they continue the way they are, I mean, they're going to go out of business eventually, or at least they're going to be. Maybe they'll never entirely go out of business, but you know, they're going to be the minority of
They're going to become another podcast.
Yeah.
That's the way they're going. I mean,
No,
take a look. Take a look at this thing. You know it because you told me before anybody else. Joe Rogan has got an audience that is larger than all of these clowns combined.
Yeah.
That tells you all you need to know.
And there's a reason why, is because Rogan is one of the most gifted interviewers who ever lived. And when you're watching an interview and the interviewer is either disgusting, like when actors have to go on these junkets to promote their movies and the interviewer is giving them a tongue bath, and it's just awful to watch. Yep. Or they interrupt them. The person giving the interview is been this person will be on the air for 2.5 minutes and they'll be interrupted every sentence. Nobody wants to watch that. And Joe Rogan routinely does 3-hour shows that people sit through because he's an incredibly gifted interviewer.
But my point is different. He doesn't have the backing of a network, but he's kicking every network's ass.
Mm-hmm.
Things are changing. 20 years ago, a Rogan was inconceivable. If you had somebody with the most golden tongue, gifted interviewer, if he didn't have a vehicle, he had nothing. If he didn't have an hour on CNN or Fox, that was it. Today, that is no longer necessary.
Well, and before cable, there was only the 3 networks, and
yep,
you'd have 50 million people watching one, ABC, CBS, NBC. Tens of millions of people watched every night.
Yeah.
And they slanted the news. There was never a period where our reporters and our anchors were entirely unbiased. The bias was much more well hidden back then. It wasn't as insane, but Walter Cronkite famously said we'd lost the Vietnam War right at the moment where we'd actually won it. We'd completely destroyed the Viet Cong and the North Vietnamese army. And that's when Cronkite stepped in and said, we've lost the war. And he did that because after he retired, he revealed that ideologically he was closer to the North Vietnamese than he was to the United States.
Absolutely, because anybody who knows the guy. But the only reason he had so much power is there were no alternatives.
Exactly.
50 million Americans watched his shit every night because there was nothing else to watch. Now the offer is almost unlimited, and eventually, if market rules apply, he with the best programming, with the best style, with the more accurate representation of facts, will win in the end.
Well, that's basically what's happening. I don't see MSNBC coming back anytime soon because, what they did to themselves was they ended up, they went completely insane with their accusations, but they also went back to all the accusations from 2016. And I saw interviews on the street where Generation Z people were saying, we already know what a Trump presidency is going to be like because he was already president. And that was something that Joy Reid and Rachel Maddow, they were acting as if Trump was a completely unknown quantity when in fact he'd already been president.
Now, to them, there was a mental condition of people who are absolutely unable to learn anything.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not the same thing as dementia, that you don't have short-term memory. No, these people did have short-term memory, but a complete inability to process the information, so that you teach them something, and then you have to do it again, and then you have to do it again because they have zero retention capability. That's Joy Reid to you. She can see facts exposed to her day after day after day with cruel regularity, and she will learn nothing from it.
Well, also, these leftists have made their ideology their identity. And when you disagree with them, you're threatening their very existence. And, conservatives aren't like that.
No, I think it's a question, and some of these some folks in Quadverum call them conservative Inc. Because it's a business, not the ideology. But some of these magatards, some of these conservative Inc. people, they are exactly the same, and I see a large component of narcissism.
Oh yeah. I mean,
Laura Ludi came up with a declaration, and by the way, I only know these things because people send me screenshots. Because I blocked the stupid cow back when you and I were there in 18, because I can't stand the nonsense. But the thing is that she says, I can't understand why people who claim to be MAGA block me. I am MAGA. If you block me, you block MAGA. I don't even know what the fuck that means by now. It's very difficult for me to lower my discernment abilities to the level that I can understand what that statement meant.
well,
But the notion that she claims to be, this is no different than Fauci saying, I am science. If you speak against science, if you speak against me, you're speaking against science. L'État, c'est moi. MAGA, c'est moi. Is the non plus ultra of narcissism.
Well, but I think that if the majority of people, or at least a plurality of people, get any sort of attention, it immediately goes to their head. And, Trump is the first politician I've ever seen who his support and his success and all of that, it doesn't go to his head. And I knew from reading the interview, the profile that the New York Times Magazine wrote about him in 1984, I knew that by his early 30s, he'd already sort of accomplished everything he wanted to do. He'd gotten all the butt kissing any human could ever want. And
you weren't in New York at the time. I was in New York when he inaugurated Trump Tower, the building that couldn't be built. Everybody who knew anything about New York knew that Trump's folly will never become reality. He will never get the permits. Well, he got the permits, but he'll never get this. He'll never get that. When he inaugurated the building, I remember he put a bronze band on the terrazzo midway, and the first thing, I'm on Fifth Avenue under it, and the thing explodes, pa 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 pa, with a hallelujah fanfare that reverberated through Fifth Avenue and 57th Street, and he had like a big snow crystal hanging over the crossroads. Nobody thought it could be done. He did it. The butt kissing began then. By the end of that year, they had worked all their way to the duodenal sphincter. I don't think that he bought into the ass kissing then, and I don't think it's worked since.
No, he's never been somebody who, in fact, he doesn't like that sort of thing. I mean, you hear the press calling him thin-skinned and all that. That's just idiots talking about themselves, not him. But the thing is, I mean, okay, there's never any consequence for people who make these claims, like the people who kept warning us about the unstoppable Russians, or when the North Koreans first arrived. Oh God, this is going to be a real problem for the Ukrainians. Well, according to Russian prisoners, the North Koreans don't follow any orders. They just go off and do whatever they want to do, and nobody can speak to them. So they're bused to the front line, and then they just start wandering around, and then somebody tells them enemy there, and so they rush at the Ukrainians, and they're wiped out.
Yeah.
And it was all a giant waste of humanity. And the Russia or the Ukrainians captured their first Ukrainian prisoners, but none of them survived because the North Koreans have what are known as blocking troops behind them, and if they see these people trying to surrender, they kill them. And
yeah,
you know, Russia is collapsing. The central bank was supposed to raise interest rates to 23, and the president just said, "Fuck it, no," and she left it at 21. And you know, it's a disaster. It's a catastrophe.
I have to say, I don't think it makes a difference at this point because their economy is a zombie economy at this point.
Yeah.
Banks without money, stores without merchandise, trains that don't work. They have no.
Well, the Russian money.
No gas, no oil, no labor, no transportation. The whole country is
Russian
the verge of collapse.
Is mystified because they send out the Russians send out these they're called dark ships or ghost ships, and they're basically river trafficking vessels that are used to clandestinely ship oil. And so they sent one out, and you would think if they're clandestinely shipping oil, you don't want to draw attention to yourself, but they had this ship drag its anchor to start cutting cables in the Baltic Sea. So
yeah,
the Finns boarded it by helicopters. They flew a helicopter over the bridge and rappelled down and captured this ship and impounded it. And once they'd impounded it, they found that it was also full of electronic warfare. It's a kit. It's basically put on board in these enormous boxes, and so it's like the mindset. It's like, wait a minute, you want to be both clandestine and you also want to draw attention to yourself. Like what is wrong with your head? You're not making any sense.
Well, they don't have a head. And
apparently
they were claiming the ships were not Russian. This one was flagged in the Cook Islands, I think. But then, you know, with all the surveillance equipment on board and all that jazz, they kind of gave themselves up anyway. They're running out of options. They have nothing. All they have is computer-generated imagery of missiles that don't exist.
Yeah.
Didn't you find that comical this week? The Russians unveiled a new missile. Remember the last time they unveiled a new missile that was unstoppable? They could fire at anything, anywhere around the world in 5 minutes' notice, and nothing could stop it. That one never materialized. Now they have a new one with multi-warheads and all that, and all they can show is computer animation. And bad quality, by the way. I think when we were discussing this, I told you they look like they're 20 years behind in computer animation. Star Wars and better stuff.
Putin, he had some Zoom meeting about Russia taking the lead in human rights, and the first thing he did was he started jabbering about his new missile. And apparently Putin knows nothing about economies. And so they just give him happy talk. And then he says, well, what about new weapons? And they say, oh, we've got this magnificent missile. and they fill him in on, he's bored by economic stuff, so they fill him in all the details about it, the new weapons, and then he goes out and he brags about them. And okay, the hypersonic Kinsel missile, it turns out it's not hypersonic at all. It's hypersonic maybe at the peak of its flight route, but it slows down. Oh, there we go. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. This actually comes from you, Boob.
Yeah. So anyway, I don't understand what the Russians are thinking, and I don't understand what Westerners who keep warning us about the Russians are thinking. I mean, the Russians began threatening us with nuclear war. The reason the Finns and the Swedes joined NATO was because the Russians threatened them with nuclear war right after they invaded Ukraine in 22. So they've been threatening the West with nuclear war since 2022. And there's that dog won't hunt anymore. You know, we're gonna send nukes. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, that dog won't hunt in our hunting party, but that doesn't stop myriad imbeciles come out with the the Russians are coming. Oh, if we don't stop and give them Ukraine, they're going to start a nuclear war. Oh, give me a fucking break. It doesn't. It didn't make sense at the beginning. It didn't make sense in 2022 when Russia was threatening Ukraine. It doesn't make sense now. I would suggest all of these people need to grow up and change grifts.
Well, I mean, there's multiple nuclear powers in the world, and if they all see that Russia gets its way by simply threatening nuclear war, what's Pakistan going to do? What's North Korea going to do?
I don't know.
You know,
Pakistan doesn't know what it's going to do because right now they're under attack from the Taliban, who's just invaded northern Pakistan with our weapons. Yay!
Yeah, the you know, I read a lot of foreign press. I don't get any of my information from American or British press. And so I learned things like I learned from the Indians, for example, that Breitbart had an article about how the Alawites in Syria were now being persecuted by the new government in Syria. That's a lie. What happened was the new government sent police to arrest one of the Alawite torturers from that prison they liberated, and the cops were ambushed. 15 cops were killed, and the remaining cops opened fire to defend themselves, and a couple of people on the sidelines were hurt. And then immediately the Alawites, pushed by Assad supporters, started marching and protesting, and the Western press said, "Oh, look, they're already starting to persecute religious minorities." I thought this guy said, and I've read multiple speeches given by the man who used to call himself Jolani, and now the I believe he's the prime minister. I'm not sure. They're basically reaching out to
acting as such. They're reaching out to Israel. Yes.
Reaching out to Israel. Now, we were told that the Israelis blowing up Assad's weapons depots had permanently ruined the relationship with the new Syria. That's not true at all.
No.
Jolani was saying, we don't have a beef with Syria. We don't have a beef with anyone except for the Iranians. And if the Iranians stop what they're doing, we won't have a beef with them either. He's not talking like a jihadist.
No. No, I still, I still maintain what I've been saying in the last 3 weeks, because obviously nothing much has changed.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. You have to.
I don't trust him farther than I can speed, but this is his time to observe
Yeah.
and see if he delivers, and be on guard in case he doesn't. But we don't have enough elements to praise or condemn the guy. Uh,
Well,
as
we
to the Alawites, those fucking Shiite assholes in Syria, who have been the backbone and principal support of the Ba'athist Party and the Assad regimes for the past 52 years. And I say regimes because it's two, Hafez and Bashar. And the Alawites have provided all of the personnel and support and finance and have been the greatest beneficiaries of the regime for 52 years. So if whoever happens to gain control in Syria wants to go after torturers, after the secret police, who the fuck do you think they're going to be?
they're going to be
Buddhists,
Alawites, and they're going to be located in Latakia.
period.
Yeah.
And that is not a persecution of a religious minority. This
No.
is rounding up the shock troops of the Assad regime.
Yeah, and I would appreciate it if this would just be reported and not, editorialized by people with these knee jerk reactions to everything. The problem with too many conservative news outlets is that they're all gore crows and doom criers. The Breitbart was going on about how all the Christians in Syria are now doomed and we all have to pray for them.
What was the last time that Breitbart complained about the treatment of the Yazidis?
Well, yeah.
26,000 Yazidi women are still used as sex slaves by the remnants of ISIS.
They just rescued one who'd been a sex slave for over 10 years. The Israelis.
Did you hear anything from Breitbart?
The Israelis rescued one who was in Gaza who had been sold to Hamas. She was an Iraqi Yazidi.
I remember that woman. She gave a heart-wrenching interview.
Yeah.
About how she was passed along and sold until she ended up in Gaza. Another reason not to give these assholes quarter, by the way.
No,
how many Christians were killed yesterday in Nigeria?
Well, this is the thing. I mean, okay, for one thing, they're African, so you can't get anyone.
Yeah, right. Too dark to be of concern.
But okay, there was a Christmas tree that was torched in Syria, and the head of the representative of HTS, who is a Muslim, a Sunni Muslim, we were told he was an Islamist. He came down and he held up a Christian cross to show that they personally respect the Christian religion.
And went after the guys who torched the Christmas tree.
Yeah. He said that these are not Syrians. These are outsiders. So Iranians and the Assad supporters are going to be doing whatever they're like the Nazi werewolves after World War II. They're going to be doing for some time, and
whatever they can.
It'll be up to the Alawites to.
And the Tucker Carlsons of this world are going to be propagandizing in their favor.
Of course. I mean, okay, Tucker is another doom crier. Tucker claims that Trump wanted to go to war with Iran, and so Tucker, in the first Trump term, Tucker went to Mar-a-Lago and explained to Trump that if we go to war, civilians will die. And Trump went, "Oh my God, I didn't even think of that."
Oh my God, I didn't know that. By the way, what was the reason that Trump fired John Bolton?
What was the reason?
Yes,
because Bolton wants to go to war with everybody.
Because according to Trump, Bolton permanently insisted in the need to go to war with Iran. And whatever we were talking about, he wanted to go to war with Iran. And finally, I couldn't stand it anymore and told him to fuck off.
Yeah, and
but he needed Tucker Carlson to tell him that.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, okay, I don't oppose Tulsi Gabbard being given the position of director of national intelligence, but I also remember that she used to go around saying that Trump was marching us into a war with Iran, and
yes,
there was no evidence for that. The Iranians shot down a Reaper drone, and Trump was asked, "If aren't you going to retaliate?" And he said, "I'm not going to kill people over a machine."
He said, "We're not going to kill people over a $2 billion machine." I remember that exactly.
Yeah.
Now, full disclosure, I do think that eventually somebody is going to have to destroy the military capability of Iran. I don't think we're going to go to war with Iran because we don't need to, but we need to destroy every fucking Revolutionary Guard base and their naval bases and their military bases and their nuclear facilities, and then let the Iranian people fix it.
Well, here's something
that's my opinion. So I'm neither. Let's go to war, not let's stand behind. And Iran is the last man standing of this coalition in the Middle East.
Here's something that doesn't get much attention is that normally when we bomb the Middle East, a couple of B-52s will take off from Louisiana and fly out, drop their bombs, and fly back on a nonstop mission. We've flown B-52s, B-2s, and B-1s to bases in the Middle East where they are now sitting on the ground. So they are, we know that at least some of them have been used in Yemen, but most of them have not been used yet. So that tells me that if the Israelis do go after the Iranian military capabilities in total, then we're going to be helping them out, and it'll be done by the order of the commander of CENTCOM is what's going to happen.
But they're going to degrade the Houthis first.
Yeah.
And my reference to the last man standing is because some people are referring to, I traced it to an article in the Jerusalem Post that attributes to somebody in the Israeli Defense Ministry that the Houthis are the last man standing. And I totally disagree. The mullahs are the last men standing. Yeah. The Houthis are merely the last stop before you get to the last man.
Yeah, I mean, we can't take things at face value. The Israelis, like the Ukrainians, often say things that they want everybody to take at face value because you find out the most amazing things that Putin is watching CNN. That's where he gets his news, or his people are watching CNN and giving him the news. And if you tell the mullahs that, after we take care of the Houthis, we're done, they're going to be wiping the sweat off their brow and going, boy, we dodged a bullet, didn't we, kids? And that's when you send in the F-35s.
Yeah, that's when they drop the guard. But and you said we recently used them in Yemen. That was the first actual serious response to the Houthis since this whole circus started almost 2 years ago. I cannot believe that we've tolerated for nearly 2 years a disruption of supply lines and shipping lines to the degree we have around the Indian Ocean, Bab el-Mandeb, and the Red Sea, and the Suez Canal as a necessary consequence. That probably informs Trump's position on the Panama Canal. We cannot tolerate China or anybody else having control of Suez or Panama.
Well, also, now that Biden is down to his last few weeks as president, they're all spilling the beans that he's basically been absent his entire term. He was his work day was something like 10 in the morning to 4 in the afternoon, and I don't even buy that. But if this latest attack, like you said, it was the most serious attack. That was done on the orders of the commander of CENTCOM, because
of CENTCOM. It didn't come from DC.
It didn't come from DC. And all the people in the Biden administration, I've come to the conclusion that they all honestly thought that Kamala was going to win, and they'd all keep their jobs, and there would just be this seamless transition to a younger female coffee-colored version of Biden. And I think they're all they're in a vegetative state now, because as bizarre as it is, these people were all certain that Kamala was going to win in a landslide. I mean, they were giddy. And I knew Trump was going to win if the cheating was held in check. And California cheated the Republicans out of about 10 seats in the Congress, in the House. Then we've also learned that the census was fake. The census gave blue states a lot more members of Congress than they deserve.
Yep.
And so all of this needs to be addressed. If there are enough Republicans who will vote with the Democrats and stop the Election Integrity Act or whatever, then Trump has to really get things done in time for the midterms, so we can hopefully get a real majority. It just address this once and for all, because when I first came to California, we used paper ballots, and we were handed a paper ballot, and we put it in this little plastic holder, and then we had it was like a magic marker, and you punched all these little dots onto the paper ballot, and then you pulled the paper ballot out and you put it in a box, and that worked fine. I don't remember them taking a month and a half to count before. So we have to go back.
That's not unlike what we do in Virginia or Florida today. And except that instead of putting it in the box, you put it into the scanner, and the scanner tabulates it and keeps the paper so that it could be recounted in paper form later. But at the end of the day, you already have the count.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to wait 5 minutes.
Yeah.
There is no explanation for that but fraud.
Yeah, exactly. And okay, leftists have made it clear that they think that stealing elections and murdering political opponents and murdering CEOs, they're all down with it. They agree that all of this is necessary. They support it, because they're so moral that they need to do all sorts of immoral things in order to come out on top.
They are so moral that they feel entitled to kill a husband and a father over denial of service that he never did, in which he never took part, to satisfy their anti-capitalist diatribe. These people are worse than Bakunin.
Yeah. I mean,
every fucking Democrat who supports or sympathizes with the murder of the United Healthcare CEO is a criminal son of a bitch just waiting for the opportunity to act. Because if you're justified, you're justified. There is absolutely no reason for you to restrain yourself.
Well, that's the thing. And the story has changed. When this first happened, everybody said that the shooter didn't have any health problems himself and didn't have any relatives who'd been denied. And then after a few days, suddenly, oh, he had chronic back pain and he was denied treatment. He came from a massively wealthy family. What do you mean he was denied treatment? You know?
Number one. Number two, so fucking what? If it was true that somebody denied his treatment because it wasn't covered, because they were whatever reason, because the recommended treatment is not the standard treatment. Like I said, my father's oncologist recommended some drugs which were deemed experimental, and therefore Medicare and his insurance didn't cover them, and it was more like $9,000 per month. That one alone. What should I go and find somebody to kill because they didn't approve the drug? Is that the way it works?
Well, what people don't understand is that, you know, it's the same, with the exception of the COVID vaccines. If you spend, hundreds of millions of dollars creating a new medication, it has to go through years and years and years of very expensive testing due to the government, and it can be rejected. You can find that all that money is gone. It's the same with people who talk about the military industrial complex that doesn't exist. If you recently there was a competition to replace the what is it, the it's called the Black Hawk helicopter. It's a troop carrier, and there were two models, and one of them had counter rotating rotors, and then the other is like the F-22 Raptor, where it lifts off the ground and then the rotors move forward and it flies on the plane. So they chose that one, and the other one, all that money was basically wasted. They're not going to get refunded by the government for all the money they spent creating that prototype.
They do that all the time.
They do that all the time. So
they have to create prototypes that are not chosen, and hopefully eventually you get. And every now and then there is a provision in the contract to, reduce the damage, because nobody wants to break these companies either. Fuck it, we need them. But it's not like people think. It's what if it was half as much of a military industrial complex as these idiots propound, Chrysler would still be around. McDonnell Douglas would still be around. Lockheed would still be making planes.
I'm just looking at health insurance net profit margins.
Shit.
Take a wild guess what a health insurance net profit margin is in percentage wise.
4.
2.2.
I'm behind the times. I knew that Obamacare was going to fuck him, but I didn't know it was that much.
Yeah, so big pharma.
By the way, when I said 4, I'll bet you 10 to 1. Most of our listeners thought that I was lowballing you.
Oh, of course. People think that the health insurance companies are making 90% profits, and they're making 2.2%. So
yeah, no, it's really and in the most regulated environment, they cannot fart sideways. Between the federal regulation and the state regulation, these people are not even running their businesses anymore. They're administrators for the state.
No, And this is why, I mean, we have to deregulate a hell of a lot. We have to keep some regulations in place that'll protect the workers, that'll protect the environment. We don't want raw sewage being pumped into rivers anymore. But when you're making this gigantic amount of cash, but basically your net profit is only 2.2%. I mean, that's shocking. That's lower than like grocery stores,
which is already alarmingly low.
Yeah. No, it's. See, you want everybody. You want every industry. What?
Let me clarify one thing, because you say we need some regulation, and you gave the example of we don't want raw sewage into our rivers. I agree. That is done through legislation, not regulation. I don't think there should be a single regulation coming out of anywhere but the Congress of the United States. Whatever controls we need, we must have them through legislation. Only our elected representatives have a say in this. We cannot keep having 90% of the laws that govern our lives come from fucking bureaucrats whose name or sometimes even organization we don't even know.
Well, okay, I'm fighting with the city, my city here, because they've cited me for violating a city code, but the code on the ticket applies only to commercial buildings. And I've gone through the city charter, the whole thing, and it is not illegal to do what I'm doing. I'm not violating any codes, but it's impossible to get in touch with somebody in the code department. So they just sent me a notice that I haven't paid, so the fine went up. And if this happens again, they're going to put a lien on my property. So it's demented because I haven't violated any code. The code officer misapplied a commercial code to a residential building. And
you're going to have to hire a lawyer, I told you.
Well, I mean, it's. We'll just see. I'm definitely going to make myself a real nuisance in a nice, smiley way, just so I can get somebody in the code department to agree with me that the code written down on this ticket here doesn't apply to residential buildings. And we don't have to embarrass the code officer. I won't insult him. I won't get on his bad side, but I'm going to force them to tell me, name the city code that prohibits what I've done on my house. Give me the number of the city code. And when they're unable to do that, then, this whole thing can hopefully go away. I don't want to have to go through the lawyer. I don't want
to. The problem with these entities is that they're not prepared to listen to your concerns. You may find yourself going about in circles like Mr. K. Remember Mr. K?
Mr. K?
Yes, Kafka.
Oh, yeah.
Mr. K, the guy who's trying to get things done in a bureaucracy and can never get to talk to the right person. You're going to end up like Mr. K. At one point, give yourself some, a time limit, because if you don't, their clock keeps running. And the next thing you know, they're going to put a lien on your house. And the next thing you know, because the lien is from a taxing authority, they're going to put up your house for auction. I mean, it's that ridiculous. It is that fucking ridiculous. Because if it was a civil complaint, I put a lien on your house and I have to wait until you sell it. But these guys can actually put it in the auction block. The only way that you can stop him is with the judge saying, "No, wait, stop. What code did he violate?" And at that point, you're going to get an answer. But it is a pain in the ass. I mean, I don't wish it on my enemies. I don't wish it on my enemies.
This is a small city, and the city hall is just right down the street. So I'm pretty sure I can get. I'm pretty sure I can get. The problem, they said I can request a hearing by downloading a certain form, but when you try and download the form, it gives you the 404 page does not exist. So, I'm going to go down there in person, and I'm just going to explain everything to somebody and say, I need a human to help me out. I've done this multiple times.
I'm too old and too dumb. Could you please?
Yeah. No, it's. I mean, it's. This doesn't enrage me. It just makes me. Well, it's annoying. It's annoying. So many things are annoying now, and I don't know. It's. I would like to spend at least some years of my life not being annoyed. That would be nice.
Yeah.
New Year's coming up, so that's going to be very annoying.
Yes. Well, in your case in particular, I know. How was it with the with Christmas? Did Santa bring you a lot of rocketry?
At exactly midnight, there's this massive volley of explosions, and then it stopped. And it was just like, it was so retarded. It wasn't, I mean, it was all at once. It was like somebody had piled all these explosives in a pile and tossed a match on top of them. And it was so dumb. I've come to realize that my neighbors are really dumb people, that they're very simple. They work, they come home, they turn on the music, they have a beer, and they socialize. And okay, they had a live band again on Christmas Eve, I think, and they've been there for 20 years. And every time they have a live band where they play their music from their ancestral village, they get a little girl to go up on stage and sing out of tune. So for 20 years, they've had like a 5-year-old. There's an ever-present 5-year-old there. That's how many 5-year-olds they've produced in 20 years. Yeah. It's and they all sound the same. It's like, wait a minute, weren't you singing that 20 years ago? Oh, no, that was my grandma. Oh, that's right, your grandma, your 32-year-old grandmother. I'm sorry.
Yes.
So it's just so eerie. And did you see or did you hear about Jane Fonda on the Bill Maher show? Jane Fonda revealed herself to be a complete airhead when it comes to politics and the state. She denied that California is leftist. She denied that there was a crime problem. She had never heard of that there being a crime problem. And Bill Maher was he's telling her, you need to get out. You need to like go out in the world. But she came across.
Step away from the limo for a couple of minutes.
Well, she's natively intelligent. She's very well spoken, and she's 80 years old, but doesn't project like an 80-year-old. But she just doesn't know anything about anything, and she votes the way she does, and is an activist because
And every time I go to the American Legion, I pee on her.
Well, it's just ridiculous. And this is the majority of the voters in this state.
Jane Fonda, like every other leaptard, is functionally illiterate. She can read, and she can read well, but she doesn't know what the fuck she's reading. The woman knows a lot of things that are simply not true.
Exactly.
And that's any knowledge of the real world. And we would have to agree on what constitutes intelligence. Since I was a kid, my father would emphasize that intelligence is the ability to relate knowledge. That you received diverse ideas and you process them and you combine them in your unique way and come up with novel solutions, and that is intelligence. Otherwise, you're just parroting. She's a parrot. She has the intelligence of a tropical bird. And ever since she appeared on the anti-aircraft batteries in Hanoi, she hasn't learned shit.
Yeah.
I'm sure she still doesn't know why people get upset. She was working for peace. Bitch. And when I say I do every time I go to the Legion, I mean it. You know that every urinal in the Legion has a little image of Jane Fonda, Hanoi Jane.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So you kind of like target your stream onto Hanoi Jane.
Well, I mean, that whole period was highly stupid, and you know, okay, Donald Sutherland died recently, and apparently he had like a very short fling with Jane Fonda, which he never got over. Like they they had a road show that they went on called FTA, which stood for Fuck the Army, and they had a fling, and then she moved on with her life, and he was left mourning his lost Jane for like the next 60 years. And it was like, why would you admit that?
The one thing that I would say about Donald Sutherland is there is one movie that redeems him. Oh boy. With Telly Savalas.
Oh, The Dirty Dozen?
The Dirty Dozen.
Yeah.
The Dirty Dozen. Donald Sutherland as a tank captain, as the spacey, probably podhead tank captain.
Yeah. Okay, that was Kelly's Heroes. That was Kelly's Heroes.
Kelly's Heroes.
And you're right. Telly Savalas was in that one too. Yeah. So
yeah,
Sutherland and Savalas were in The Dirty Dozen and Kelly's Heroes.
Yeah, and that's why I always confused them, by the way.
Yep.
Kilroy was here.
Yep.
That ever optimistic tank commander. Don't say what if they bomb the bridge? Don't say they'll bomb the bridge. Think the bridge will be there, and the bridge will be there. I forgive him all of his sins because of the enjoyment he has given me through the years with that role alone.
Sure.
He was an idiot. I mean, he was a Canuck. Comes with the territory. His son is actually exponentially more stupid.
Yeah, and I don't know. I just Kiefer Sutherland. Kiefer.
Mm-hmm.
I here in California, kefir was like a yogurt drink. So maybe he named his son after a yogurt drink. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a good thing he didn't have a daughter. He would have named her Heifer.
Heifer,
And
yeah.
you would have the twins, Kiefer and Heifer.
Yep.
I don't know what's in their head. He was probably on peyote when he named his child.
He definitely enjoyed the 60s.
Jesus. These are creatures of the 60s, aren't they? The
Yeah,
bad side of the 60s.
like the 60s are over, and the 60s weren't what people made them out to be. The Vietnam War wasn't what people made them out to be. The famous napalm little girl was the South Vietnamese who accidentally did that. It wasn't us. The village of My Lai was the massacre was stopped by Americans. Americans were there saving Vietnamese from the murderous troops. So it's like everything else. We were talking about narcissism. Someone like John Kerry, just this massive, unstoppable narcissist who in the end is just like this weirdo with a completely ruined face that now he looks like one of the old Muppet men sitting up in the balcony.
Yes, the one on the left in the balcony. I was thinking about that. Yes.
Yeah, he looks like one of them. And
yeah,
and he's out there still jabbering about climate change. And it's like, John, your time came and went. Just go.
Yeah.
Go sit.
Same thing as Al Gore. I mean, come on, give me a fucking break. I hope they both get devoured by a polar bear.
Well, what is it? The Antarctic ice is the thickest it's been in 70 years or something. It's like shocking.
It's 17% larger, the ice mass of Antarctica, and it's 17% larger than it was 50 years ago. It's been growing steadily for the past half a century. And there are areas that used to be kind of like, well, there were areas east of the Antarctic Peninsula that you could sail deep into Antarctica. Not anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Not anymore. The ice has covered all of that. So I don't know what the fuck people are talking about. We weren't supposed to have ice in the polar caps. The fucking hole in the ozone layer that was going to microwave us all into oblivion is not there. And the amount of chlorofluorocarbons in the upper atmosphere is actually greater than it was in the 70s when we banned them, because those were the culprits. And it turns out that the chlorofluorocarbons found in the upper atmosphere are native to the upper atmosphere and the product of chemical processes we're still trying to understand. And it has nothing to do with us deodorant in aerosol.
Well, that's the thing. Like Gore would say, the science is settled. Science is never settled. Science is never settled.
No, dogma.
In my lifetime, Neanderthals have gone from these grunting, boneheaded, cavemen to basically humans who could speak and produce art. Yes. I saw
we're still in our DNA.
I saw a documentary about amputations, and the earliest amputations they found was in Neanderthal skeletons, and they determined that some Neanderthal had his mangled limb amputated, and then he was cared for by the tribe. So, and then, like you said, I when I was growing up, we learned that the Cro-Magnons exterminated the Neanderthals in territorial warfare, and now
No, they fuck their women.
Now they've determined that they just, interbred the Neanderthals out of existence. So,
yeah. Which is, for instance, whenever people, New Englanders interbred Indian tribes out of existence. The tribes disappeared. The Indians did not. They're walking about, mixed with everybody else, which is what generally happens to populations when they coexist for long periods of time in the same area. Eventually, they kind of melt into each other. Only the biggest bigots and racists in this planet would argue that separation is necessary. The natural way is to just mix it all together and come up with a new cocktail.
Well, if you wait long enough, almost every scientific theory will be proven wrong. And, just I watch a lot of British documentaries, and man, these are like the whiniest people. Every time they do a documentary about the U.S., they find fault. We exterminated the Native Americans. Guns, slavery, just everything. Like this is hell on earth, and it's like, well, okay, the Brits are all proud because they sent their navy to stop the slave ships, and it's like, well, it's kind of stretching it a little bit.
Well, you know where the largest slave market in the Americas was?
No?
Buenos Aires. In a place located right across the street from the Sheraton Buenos Aires that is called the Square of the English, with the Tower of the English. The Tower of the English is a tower given as a gift by England to Buenos Aires, with a clock that is a replica of Big Ben. And why is that? Because that place used to be called in colonial times Retiro de los Ingleses, the literally set apart for the Brits. And that's where the largest slave market in the Americas, and they would bring in the ships from Africa, house them in these markets, auction them off, and then transport them to Brazil, Colombia, Peru, the Caribbean. The Brits were the largest importers of slaves in America. What the fuck are they talking about?
Well, it's like the Belgians.
And the Ghanaians and Nigerians were the number one sellers in Africa.
Yeah, I mean, it's the reality of all of this is that, I saw what's his name, Mark Lamont Hill, jibber jabbering about.
Oh God, what an imbecile!
Frank Uyghur and Charlie Kirk, and of course he had to start talking about slavery, and it's like, Mark, you're a slave. You're a self-described, self-inflicted slave. You have a slave mentality. When I look at black people, I don't think, oh, look, there goes a slave. But Mark Lamont Hill does, and he always will for the rest of his life. He's got gray in his beard now, and he's still, whining about slavery.
The problem is he's a retard. For some reason, he went by the years of intellectual formation without doing anything to stimulate his brain cells, and now they're atrophied. They are what they are. He's not going to grow anymore. He's a 4-year-old in intellectual terms. And he doesn't know shit from Shinola. That's another one who knows a hell of a lot of things that are totally wrong.
Oh, I mean, I've gone back and I've gone over all the things that I was told, and like the majority of them were just wrong. And
yeah,
they were told
there were more white European slaves in Africa than Africans transported as slaves to America.
Well, there's still slavery in Africa to this day.
Yeah. Some of those markets have been operating continuously, including in Libya.
There's slavery in the UK with a lot of these immigrants coming in and enslaving the people who work in their houses for them. Nobody talks about that.
No, there's slavery in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
with all of the children and women that Biden has allowed to be trafficked into the U.S. by cartels to work either as sex slaves or in the construction industry.
Yeah.
There's slavery in Brazil, where Brazilian socialists enslave entire tribes in the Amazon to develop cattle ranches out of the jungle. Nobody talks about that. Nobody talks about that. And don't get me started with the slave markets in Liberia, Congo, Nigeria, Mali. Oh my God, blacks enslaving blacks. You shouldn't say that. Idiots.
Well, I saw a movie about peripatetic doctors going through Africa during one of their endless wars, and one of the doctors was a guy who'd been there for years, and another was like a fresh-faced young woman, and she started cracking under the pressure, and the rebels were coming, and they were angry, and she was begging the older doctor, to leave with her, and he said no, and she said, "How can you stand all this?" And he said, "Look, these are the cards these people have been dealt. This is their life. You can help or you can leave. It's binary.
Yeah.
He had his head on straight. These are the cards these people have been dealt, and that's how I view things. That I try not to make generalized statements, about life. Life is beautiful. Well, it is for some people, and it's horrible for a lot of people.
Sometimes.
So, and you just have to face reality. Some people are dealt a really, really shitty hand, and if you can help them, and you are able to, then you can help them. And if you're incapable because you can't stand the suffering, then go home and don't feel any shame, because you could spend 10 years operating on Africans, and then after you go home, there's still going to be no shortage of Africans who need operations, Yep. I saw a documentary about all the African leaders who've been assassinated in the 20th and 21st centuries, like late 20th centuries. And it's just like the assassinations continue up till I think the latest one in this documentary was like 2018. It's like, holy shit.
I was going to say 2 years ago is the last one I have registered.
Yeah.
And don't worry, within 2 years you're going to have another one.
Sure.
It's a very, very, very violent place, and libtards have made it an even more violent place than usual, because now on top of the diamonds and the gold and the traditional objects of desire, you have lithium and cobalt.
Mhm.
How about the thousands and thousands of African children performing slave labor so that a Tesla could have a battery.
Yeah.
Let me put it this way. So that a bunch of fucking morons can spend $100,000 on a car to virtue signal over the corpses of child slaves. Oh, I've so fucking had it. And those are the same people who warn you about the impending end of the world because, you are drinking too much beer and releasing too much methane into the atmosphere. We need to surgically close everybody's asshole to save the planet.
Well, we need to return to we need to have electric cars, bicycles, and ox carts. That's it. And it's like no, we don't. The car, the internal combustion engine of today bears almost no resemblance to the internal combustion engine of, say, the 1950s, the 1970s. No, the salvation of the human race is the petroleum industry. We can drill so deep economically now. I mean, basically, we're never going to run out of oil. We're always constantly discovering new oil and gas fields. So
sure, because Mother Earth keeps combining hydrogen, oxygen, and carbon, and that's all there is. I mean, come on, the three most fucking common elements on this planet is what gives us hydrocarbons. And I have Io there who works in the industry to tell me if I'm wrong. But, what kind of fucking imbecile, what kind of ignoramus without the even most basic knowledge of chemistry can tell you that we're going to run out of oil?
I have Netflix and Prime, and from about 2020 up to about 23, it was nothing but plague movies because of the hysteria over COVID. And I haven't watched any of them because they're all the same. They're all about how we brought this all on ourselves. And the minute the plague hits, we all turn into, selfish bastards who are, fighting for our own.
Except for Rene Russo, who in one of those made in the 90s dies very generously to protect her loved one.
Yeah, was that the one that opened with some medical camp that they radioed in that they'd found
like Ebola in Africa? Something gets out, and now it's in a town in California, and they close the town and they're going to bomb the town.
Yeah, they dropped a fuel air bomb on it, and that was like really, they're all waving for the plane, yay! And then
and all the fucking idiots with the hazmat suits. I mean, I don't mind it every now and then as an exercise of fantasy, as a what if. But the problem is that now it's become a way of life. That stupid Dr. Briggs, who shouldn't be allowed within a mile of a fucking microphone for the rest of her miserable existence. It's already telling us that we have a new pandemic of the bird flu coming, and we're not preparing fast enough. We have to move now. That's she can't be that gave us every fucking lie about COVID.
Yeah, she can't be trusted. Whatever she says should be disregarded right off the bat. I mean, they've been warning about the end of the world bird flu pandemic for 10 years now?
Yeah. And by the way, it's the same thing with the market. I mentioned in the monologue the market is going to crash. Well, let me put it this way: markets go up and down. Everything that goes
Yeah.
up will come down. Everything that goes down will come up. And as long as the general tendency keeps going up, which for as long as we keep improving productivity and making new products and having more people on this planet and having more people having access to products, the tendency is going to be on the upward. So, for as far as the eye can see, for as far as the mind can see, markets are going to trend upwards, regardless of the ups and downs that it's going to take to get there. Now, I'm an expert. I have been an expert trader since 2000. And I have to warn you, Thomas, that a market correction is coming. There's going to be a market correction of at least 20%. And every day I say the same shit. It's going to come. A market correction is coming. You have to prepare yourselves. Are you ready for the next market correction? Eventually, by the laws of nature, there will be a correction. And I'm going to be a fucking genius. I'm the guy who predicted the correction.
Well, that's exactly how stock trading gurus made their careers. They were wrong 99% of the time. They were right 1% of the time. And everybody,
that's like the
there was
fucking idiot. Yes.
Bob Brinker, Dorman,
Talib, Cohen, all of these morons repeated the same shit over and over and over again until eventually it happens because by law of nature, it's going to happen. If you're in the middle of a bull market, you say, watch out because the bear market is around the corner. The bear market is coming. If you're in the middle of the bear market, you better prepare and save some cash to buy into the next bull market. No shit, Sherlocks.
There's absolutely nobody who can time the market. It's not possible. It's not possible.
Sometimes they cannot figure it out 3 days after it actually happens.
Yeah. The only way you can reliably make money is by spreading your risk. And, there's various mutual funds, closed-end mutual funds. It's probably a good. There's a new way to trade on what the hell is it called? Digital currency, where it's like basically it's like a trading house that sort of has them all. And so rather than putting all your money into one digital currency,
don't ask me because I wouldn't put it into anyone. It's you see, that's not investing. That is purely speculative.
It's purely speculative.
What it does is put all of the tulips into one market, but you're still buying and selling tulips.
Yes, but this particular digital currency isn't the same as that particular digital currency. They're not all identical. So you can make money from them, but you should not definitely put all your money into one digital currency because that's the best way to lose it all. Bitcoin, there were people who made vast fortunes and then lost them all, and then decided to never go back into it again. And then now there's people who's made vast fortunes, and
it's gonna keep going up and down for I don't know how long. It could be 1 month or 20 years. I really have no idea. My beef with all of these currencies is that they have no underlying value. You're trading hot air. Period. And that they're talking about supercomputing. I don't know how close we are. Google claims that we are very close. I doubt it very much. But if we are, that's going to change the very nature of cryptocurrencies because it's going to drop the cost of producing cryptocurrencies dramatically. And I wonder what's going to happen when everybody can mint cryptocurrencies in the garage for cents.
Well, okay, all these celebrities, all these e-celebrities. The most recent one is this young girl who was interviewed on the street, and she made the sound effect of spitting on a man's genitalia, and
Oh, the hacked one.
yep, and so she was swept up by Jake something or other. There's two brothers. One of them's a boxer, and they're e-celebrities, and this boxer guy took her under his wing and gave her a show and everything, and then she came out with currency, but it was a ripoff. The currency, within seconds of the currency being announced, all the people who knew that it was being announced and put all their money in, everybody else put all their money in, and then they pulled all their money out, and the value fell through the floor, and they made millions, and everybody else.
One of the fastest pump and dump that I've seen.
Exactly.
Okay, but then again, that's the risk. But the thing that we were discussing is that to prognosticate the debacle of the markets, which is another way that the chicken diddles have of scaring people, it's bullshit on steroids, even though sometimes they may seem to be right for a week or two. Ayo is answered my plea. The planet is floating on oil and keeps making more of it. Oil is not dead dinosaurs or prehistoric plankton. No, it's water goes in through the cracks in the tectonic plates. It mixes with carbon at high temperatures and pressure and comes back as oil. And that cycle is going on continuously on planet Earth. And the planet is making more oil than we can use.
Yeah, and
of the opinions of the idiots.
That's another example of how science has changed. We used to say that oil was dead dinosaurs, and it isn't. So
no, in 1820, maybe they didn't know better. But now we not only have the chemistry down pat, we have been able to reproduce these conditions and make oil following this recipe. And we know exactly what we know more about the Earth's mantle, we know more about tectonic plates, we know more about the chemistry of hydrocarbons than these poor fuckers did in the 1800s when they assumed it was putrefact dinosaurs. So not only they're not fossil, the Earth is continuously creating oil in the same way that trees are continuously releasing oxygen into the atmosphere and sucking CO2. Imagine that.
Yeah, and you know, the moral preeners insist on wind farms. The wind farms, they don't work when there's no wind, and they don't work when there's too much wind. So
Yep.
they're basically useless. They're very unreliable, and when they do work, they kill birds and bats and all the other animals that we need to keep everything in balance. I never understood it.
And they consume more oil, more hydrocarbons in the process of making the little shits than they will replace in their lifetimes.
And they're not recyclable.
No. So, it's like enough of the bullshit. I freaking had it. No, number one, I wouldn't mind a little ice age. Because, as you well know, I suffer from heat. I hate heat. I would love to have winters with 40 degrees in Florida. Not in my lifetime. I don't mind if the temperature goes up 1 degree or 2 degrees in the next 100 years. Actually, I don't give a flying crap. They're telling me that the oceans are going to rise, but in the past 100 years, they haven't moved a fucking inch.
Oh, how can they project that when they can't even accurately project what the weather is going to be like in the next 5 days?
They can't project shit. They just found another city underwater because apparently, the seas were higher 500 years ago when about half of Florida was underwater. And yet, we have entire cities in the Italian coast that happen to be underwater now. There is one in Valencia, which is an interesting thing. There is a construction in Valencia, built by the Romans, a fish farm. The Romans built 2,500 years ago a facility to breed fish. And it consists of immense pools where you can control the water coming in and out on shore. You know what's the interesting thing about this contraption?
It's up in the mountains.
Mm-mm. It's been in the same place in Valencia for 2,500 years, and the water level has not changed. And it works today as well as it did 2,500 years ago. People have not the foggiest idea of what they're talking about. And the thing with Florida being underwater may well have to do with other factors and not the rising or falling of the seas. Like, more sediment accumulated from the various rivers, and it kind of filled in. In some cases, we have contributed. The neighborhood where I used to live in Florida in the early 80s, I used to go there with airboats fishing. And eventually my house was there. We dug canals, fill in the islands, and built houses on top of them. Otherwise, half of this fucking place would be underwater to this day. My point was that there are many factors going, and people don't take them into consideration because they don't know them. But they take for granted the cries of the Chicken Littles.
Well, the planet is not in stasis. Look at the shape of Africa and South America. They used to fit together. There used to be a time when all the continents were in one supercontinent called Pangea. So the continents have moved together.
You even have the salt flats
throughout the history of the planet. So the planet is not in stasis. There's constant changes going on, and
the continents are still moving, by the way.
Yeah, some of the changes are quick and some are slow, and who was it? Somebody, maybe it was Musk. Somebody said that we're going to have to get off the planet at some point in order to save the species. I don't know.
Maybe not. Maybe there is already no time because the big asteroid that is going to send us all into oblivion, it's already on its way. I don't know. I don't care. I understand that Elon Musk has a dream of colonizing, of making the species planetary. Yeah, whatever the fuck. I understand that it's big business for him as well. And I wish him the best. And I find it rather not interesting, but uplifting that somebody is still looking to expand our horizons. But if you're doing it because the species may become extinct. Well, it may become extinct here and in Mars too. So,
Well, wherever we move to, we're going to need the ability to go outside. I mean, you know, the planet
and quite a rich biosphere.
Yeah, I mean, if we go to Mars, every single structure we build on Mars is going to be in, danger every second. If we ever get any kind of atmospheric leak, then we all die. And
yeah, did you see the surface of Mars?
Yeah, it's like it's like
how many potholes you have?
Yeah, it's like Death Valley.
They're gonna be hitting your house too.
Yeah. No, they have storms. They have all that stuff.
Yeah, and of course, the Deb says here to save consciousness. I don't know that consciousness is worth saving, frankly. If it is the consciousness of an Einstein, maybe. If it is the consciousness of Laura Loomer, please send that meteor now.
Well, I'm pretty sure that if there was an asteroid, we're pretty good at charting them, and
yes,
my guess is that we would be able to strike this thing with some kind of kinetic weapons, and
if it was small enough,
blow it up, and the majority of those pieces, just through statistics, would land in some body of water somewhere.
Yeah,
and maybe tsunamis, depending on the size of the
maybe.
Or we maybe all the time anyway, and we survive them. So,
or maybe here's like the one that hit where the Gulf of Mexico is, and we have a interesting change in the species that survive, and that's the end of it. It's not something that because you and I have discussed this, that there are things that deprive me of sleep. And I discovered, to my good fortune recently, things that replenish it.
Sure.
This one is not one of the factors that deprives me of sleep. I don't give a flying fuck about saving the consciousness of humanity. I don't care if this species survives or joins the dodo. I really don't.
Well, I think it will survive because
it doesn't affect my life.
I think it will survive because it's not only got the will to survive, it's got the means. We're definitely improving. We were locked in this cycle of cataclysmic wars every 20 years, and the wars got so bad that we had 2 world wars, and then we learned from that. And we said, no more world wars. And, people talk about World War III. Nobody's going to come in on the side of Russia, especially now.
No.
The Chinese would be completely unable to. It's shocking. As bad as the Russian economy is, the Chinese economy,
it's worse.
Videos coming out of China that show people commuting to work on empty trains because nobody has a job anymore. And
burning banks,
malls, entire malls are completely empty because nobody has money, nobody has a job. It's the mass crammed Tokyo style subways and trains are all gone because everybody's been fired, everybody's been laid off.
Yep.
So, and then the Chinese just introduced their new wedge-shaped super fighter. It's a piece of shit. They flew it around with the landing gear down because they weren't able to build a prototype with retractable landing.
It's a pity my kids have grown up. I would have bought one of those as a toy for my son.
Yeah.
And people are already, oh my God, the Chinese, did you see? 6th generation aircraft. Listen, if you're going to lie. It's a 12th generation aircraft. What the fuck? They skipped 7 generations, and they are into the self-materializing aircraft. You think of them, I need an aircraft there. And the aircraft, poof, pops out of nowhere and bumps the living shit out of the enemy. And then you don't have to take it to a hangar because you say, now I don't need it anymore. And poof, it dematerializes. And that's how advanced the Chinese are. Right?
Well, did you see the size of it? It's like the size of, I mean, it's gigantic. It's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous piece of Chinese propaganda. And anybody who thinks that it's a genuine, for it to be a 6th generation fighter means that it's completely changed the paradigm of fighters, and it's a new leap forward, and now we're all gonna have to catch up to them. And it's like, but it doesn't.
But you see, the Chinese are experts in leaps forward.
Yeah, they certainly are, aren't they?
Is every time they're standing on the edge of a precipice, they take a great leap forward.
Yep.
A great leap forward. It's a joke.
Yeah.
It's a joke, but don't worry. They're going to build a pontoon bridge so that 5 million infantry, which they don't have, can invade Taiwan, which they would need to. Because that's another one. Nobody talks about the number of troops needed to take a 45 island with 25 million people.
Well, and to occupy it. How the hell are they going to occupy it when it's like the perfect place to have an endless insurgency?
Oh God. Are you kidding me? They don't have the people to take it. They don't have, if they did have the people, they don't have the means of transportation. Their Air Force is a joke. Their Navy, oh baby, their Navy is a good fishing fleet. And that's about it. The Argentine Navy just sunk not too long ago a fishing boat and chased a couple more. Do you think the Chinese are defending their position?
No. I saw the video of the Argentine Coast Guard sinking the Chinese factory ship. They warned it a million times, and they got nothing but blank stares in return. So they sank it.
And by the way, the Argentine Coast Guard cutter is, I mean, it's junk.
Yeah.
That thing would have been turned into Pepsi cans in the U.S. a long time ago. And that's what the Argies, they chased the Chinese with a 40-year-old bathtub. It's insane.
Well, I'm just waiting for the Chinese to actually prove something. Like you look at these movies that were made in the 2010s, and it's all about, you know, the science fiction movies. It's all about the world. The future of the world is China, and it's like, I knew it. The future of the world is not China. Like you can say that because the Chinese are funding your movie, and they make that a demand. But you know, it's like there's no basis for that statement. There's the Chinese.
Zero. But then again, in the 80s, it was going to be the Japanese.
Yeah.
In the 50s, it was going to be green blobs from outer space, not to mention the killer tomatoes. It's movies.
Yep.
It's movies. Remember when the Russians invaded Alaska?
Oh, yeah.
Now, that was a stupid movie in the 80s, but we were expecting a Russian invasion any time now.
Yeah.
We're stupid.
Yeah, the movie about the high school kids who became guerrillas in the Rocky Mountains, and it was the Russians and the Cubans.
That's the one. That's the one with the guy from I don't know, the dancing shit movie.
Oh yeah, Yeah. I know who you're talking about.
Poor guy. He wasn't a bad guy. Died of pancreatic cancer a few years back. Red Dawn.
Red Dawn.
That one. Red Dawn. Red Dawn is like brown shit.
Yeah.
All of these things, and regardless of how sophomoric the production was, and it was, the idea that any of these shithole cacamimi pseudo countries can one day conquer all of Europe. Not even the Europeans can conquer all of Europe. It's insane.
Well,
it's insane.
Let's see.
The only thing the Russians can conquer is Germany, because the Germans have already surrendered to Russia.
The Tom Clancy came to fame with a book called Red Storm Rising about the Soviets, launching a war against the West and overwhelming us with their mighty tanks and their super brilliant spies and all of that. And I mean, it's really sad. Okay, when the Russians revealed they had a plane called a MiG-25, all hell broke loose in the West, because we thought, holy shit, look at this thing. It's got two engines. It looks like, the Foxbat. It's unbelievable. They're ahead of us. We have to, and that's why we built the F-15. Well, a Russian pilot defected to Japan with his MiG-25.
With a brand new MiG-25, mint condition.
And it was a piece of garbage. They discovered that it was made of steel. It wasn't made of aluminum. It wasn't made of titanium. It was made of steel. It was made
of steel. It had toggles like the 1950s.
Yep. It weighed like 4 times more than it should have weighed, because it was made of steel, the whole thing.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. And I don't know how many times it's been revealed to us that Russian technology is garbage and Chinese technology is garbage, but we never see.
They still haven't figured out how to build a turbine engine for the DC-9.
No.
They're still for that vaunted super uber duper 5th generation warplane, the Dragon, of which apparently 180 are said to exist. Nobody's ever seen them. Have you ever seen a squadron flying of this shit? Nope. They make them with Russian engines.
Yeah. Yes. So that means that they're not going to be able to make them anymore.
and their shit.
Yeah.
Already, without going into the particulars. And the Russians, it's like, what are they going to do? They're going to start throwing borscht at the Ukrainians?
Well, I mean, okay. When the North Koreans came in, all the experts were doom crying that, this is going to be, they're going to send 100,000 North Koreans and the Ukrainians won't be able to defend against them. It's like, yes, they can. These guys don't know what drones are. These guys don't know
Chinese stopped payments to Russian banks.
Yeah.
Period. Because if you think that the alliance with North Korea was bad, it's like, now we're fighting the Russians and the Chinese. The Chinese are allied to the Russians. The Chinese are already distancing themselves from the Russians. They have enough shit at home to deal with this crap.
Yeah, I mean, they have no money to give to the Russians, and you don't want to put any money into a Russian bank anyway. I mean, Iran, okay. They'll never defeat Hamas. They defeated Hamas. Oh, they'll never defeat Hezbollah. They defeated Hezbollah. Oh,
I'm sorry. They'll never defeat Hezbollah. beep, beep.
Yeah, exactly.
It's funny the way they did it.
Yeah. No, and now finally it's like, oh, but you can't go into Iran, you can't bomb Iran because that'll start World War III. Yeah,
The
who's going to be
Houthis,
Iran's defense?
the Houthis are 1,000 miles away. They live in mountainous terrain. Their facilities are hidden among the population. Surprise, fucking surprise, right? The good news is their populations are not in Gaza, so you can erase the facilities and the population at the same time, and nobody will be the fucking wiser. But anyway, now it's impossible to defeat the Houthis. Didn't you know that?
Yeah, because the world's worst third world army wasn't able to defeat them. So of course that means Israel can't.
No, and today there were uh, pieces in AP, the asshole press, and Jerusalem Post, and a bunch of other that repeat whatever the fuck AP comes out with, telling us how there's grave concern, I tell you, uh, because Israel cannot defeat the Houthis.
Well, the Saudis had pretty much defeated them until Biden cut refueling and the weapons supplies.
Yeah, Biden forced the Saudis to stop hitting on the Houthis. Which, by the way, they can start anytime they want, and probably will if need be.
Well, see, the Israelis have invented new munitions, and they've got some really weird, like cheerful name that I can't remember, but they use them to destroy weapons depots. And
Yeah.
The Houthis don't have endless weapons depots. They have a finite number of weapons depots. Blow up all their weapons depots, and you've defeated the Houthis. Simple as that.
Fuel. What are they hitting? Fuel depots, weapons depots,
Airports.
fuel, weapons, airports, ports, and roads. Thank you very fucking much. They're gonna be back fucking camels 24/7 in about 2 months.
Yeah.
And that's the end of it. And
Well,
that leaves only Iran.
the Israelis have done everything they said they were going to do, but it still hasn't sunk in. It still hasn't sunk in. Oh, they can't do that. Why are they saying that? They can't do that. It's like, okay, did they mopped the earth with Hezbollah in a matter of 3 weeks, and the press just moves on as if it never happened. They never say, "Holy shit, that was very impressive." They just move on.
No. Well, no, you see, one of the beepers wounded a boy who was greeting his terrorist father coming home. Who gives a shit? Then again, it's we know what's going to happen. We knew what was going to happen in Afghanistan with the withdrawal in August of 21. We fucking knew it. So what? I saw a documentary this week about the fate of the all-women flight of Afghan Airlines. Because, the most important things in Afghan was to have a plane leave Kabul airport with women pilots and women stewardesses. No trans allowed, mind you. And they did an all-women flight. By the way, how significant is an all-women flight to you?
How what? Say it again.
How significant is an all-women crewed flight to you?
Not significant in the slightest.
Unless they're prancing about the cabin in the buff, I don't give a shit. But for these people, is some kind of accomplishment of all women. Amelia Earhart has been vindicated by an Afghani woman pilot. I don't give a shit. Now they did the thing because, those poor things. The two are in exile in Bulgaria. One is in exile in I don't know where. One they cannot find. Why should I give a shit? The same people who are crying over the fate of women in Afghanistan are the ones who demanded the withdrawal of NATO forces from Afghanistan, who were the only guarantee those women have of being able to breathe tomorrow.
Yeah. And none of this was a state secret. Everybody knew this was going to happen, except for the people who wanted it to happen. So I don't know.
The kinder, gentler Taliban. Remember that bullshit?
Well, I mean, the Taliban is the Taliban. They haven't done anything to show that they're different. They haven't even said that much. All the praise was coming from the Western press. You didn't have leaders of the Taliban saying, "Oh, we're going to give women equal rights and everything." They just kept their mouths shut and let the press babble for them.
I can imagine they were laughing at the hookah bar every afternoon while reading the bullshit the Western press published. And now they're going to war with Pakistan. Pakistan, by the way, can stomp on them like cockroaches. Pakistan has a military capability to destroy anything that the Taliban throws at them. Of course, it's going to be a very limited war, and it's going to be limited to a couple of very remote mountainous areas with scarcely any population at all. And under those conditions, it could last for the next 20 years. But it's not going to change shit.
No, I mean, everybody just needs to if the Taliban invites in, if we get news of training camps and everything, we just bomb the training camps, and Afghanistan just becomes a country that has to be periodically bombed.
Yeah, why not? Use it as a training ground. Ever since the Puerto Ricans threw us out of Vilches and we lost our bomb testing island, maybe we can use Afghanistan for that. I, for one, don't give a crap. And if I am mistaken, and by some art magic, the goat humpers of the Taliban managed to actually make the Pakistan army collapse, we're going to let them take possession of Pakistan nuclear arsenal, right? We're going to let them do that.
Well, the funny thing is that even if the Taliban did get control of Pakistan's nuclear arsenal, they wouldn't. I mean, everybody talked about all the weapons we left behind. For one thing, we disabled them. But for another thing, the Taliban didn't know how to use them. They managed to fly one
helicopter,
barely.
Well, they never turned on the tail fan.
No.
It was the funniest fucking thing I've ever seen. That helicopter crashed before it took off.
Yeah.
And the tail spinning around, it's like, hello, there's a reason you have a fan over there, a rotor, the tail rotor. There's a reason you have it. Turn it on. Nothing. But can you imagine? Does anybody really think that India is going to let the Taliban take over the Pakistani?
No, it's the thing that the the last people in the world you want to go to war with are the Indians. I saw a documentary, the Green Berets and the Indian Special Forces had a joint operation or a joint training session in Alaska. It was a mountain warfare. And they were interviewing these Green Berets, and they were saying, some of these guys have been special operators for 25, 30 years. They're teaching us stuff we never even thought of. And we're the Green Berets. And these guys know things that in our entire history, we never came up with. So, don't go to war against the Indians. The Indians will fix your wagon. They've got a lot of pent up rage in them.
and there's a shit ton of them, frankly. There's an absolutely shit ton of them. Not something that Afghans can put up with. So there we go with that one. Another big contemporary canard. The one I like the best is how the Democrats are regrouping.
Or what?
Are regrouping. Because, they're coming in full force. In 2028, we may have a Kamala Harris president.
Yeah. They'll at some point, AOC and Kamala will run against each other, and it's going to be like one of those cat videos where like both of the cats are like they have some form of brain damage, and
yeah. I want a ringside sit to that one.
It's really amazing.
It's gonna be glorious.
Well, the Democrats aren't regrouping because they can't. They're incapable. They've gotten to the point where they're like the Paris Commune, where they're all arguing with each other as the French army closes in, and every single one of them is taking issue with what every single other person is saying, and that's how the Democrats are today.
Yep, and about 20% have already passed on to join the French army, regardless of their misgivings. But
yeah, I've been amazed at the organized the resistance against Trump. Okay, all of Trump's people are saying there isn't going to be a resistance. Trust us, which I believe, given the hard asses he's bringing into his administration. But on the Democrat side, I'm not hearing. I hear a lot about how they're planning to. They basically sound like they're just going to let Trump do whatever he wants and then try again in 2028. They've already sort of given up on trying to stop Trump,
or at least some of those with a modicum of intellectual ability. The David Axelrods of this world.
Mm-hmm.
They're evil minds, but they do have a mind. Others are talking resistance as if this was 2016. In 2016, it worked. And it practically ground the Trump administration to a halt in the first 2 years. Not this time, baby. Because everybody knows what you did, how you did it, and what else you can do.
Because they're going to do.
I talk about two people I'm in contact with, and they are working overtime to stop this kind of shit this time.
Yeah, I believe it.
Yep. Their efforts could prove insufficient. I may be proven wrong, but they're working on it, and I have a lot of faith that this time they're getting it. They certainly paid dearly 8 years ago for not being ready. And they know it. They're not going to let it. They're not going to be caught with the pants down again.
how could anyone be ready for that? Because like the Democrats stooped to levels that nobody'd ever seen before, and they've been going lower and lower and lower ever since.
Yep.
But Trump has no, he can't be disillusioned this time. He understands exactly what they're capable of, and
last time he was naive. You see, he never was the person that the Democrats painted him to be. He extended a conciliatory hand to Clinton after the election. He made it clear that his administration was not going to go after her. So they went after him.
Mm-hmm.
He's not going to make that mistake again.
No.
He's not going to be too good for his own good.
Mm-mm.
And on the other hand, the Democrats had the poor sense of giving us abundant precedent. Oh my God. The Department of Justice went after the junior former president. Good, let's do it again.
Mm-hmm.
Now there's precedent for that. What? You can sue a former president and argue that there is no immunity from his office? Barack, darling, there's something I need to talk to you.
Yeah.
Look, a judge just gave me a subpoena. Let's see if you can manage the resistance from a mansion in Washington now, asshole. They're gonna get everything they fear, by the way.
Well, he's done. I mean, the Obama era is finally dead and gone.
Yep.
And the funny thing is that like they have nobody even on the distant horizon who's an up and coming star. Obama first appeared on the national scene in 2004 and worked his way up until he ran in 2008. They've got nobody in that position right now. There's no young superstar who, everybody. I mean, if they're saying that the best they have is AOC, that's really sad.
I hope so. I hope so. I wonder if we can have a new brand of margarita mix, El Presidente Margarita, and we can give it to her, and that way she can be the president and spend the rest of her life mixing El Presidente margaritas for the general public. She's a joke. She's a bad joke. And don't get me started with the rest of the so-called squad, because she may turn out to be the least of those jokes.
Yeah, I mean, okay, she and some guy, he was a member of the squad. They appeared somewhere in New York because he was being primaried, and it was just embarrassing. She was like running around, flipping her hair, saying, "Oh, y'all ready?" And he was swinging his arms like he was playing. He was a helicopter or something, and it was really embarrassing. Like, and they could only attract like 20 people. So, I apparently the Democratic Party is fully run by Silicon Valley idiots who think they're much smarter than they actually are, and they're the sort of people that say, don't give me any lip, just do what I tell you to do. So if they get it in their little heads that AOC is the answer to everything, then they'll run her. and she'll lose to anybody who the Republicans put up.
I would tell those little idiots that the times they are a changing,
Yeah.
and they may not have a job in Silicon Valley for too long if they keep doing this.
Well, okay.
Because the real guys are not liking it anymore.
After Trump won in 2016, there wasn't a steady stream of former enemies going to Mar-a-Lago to talk with him. There is this time.
From Bill Gates and Zuckerberg, everybody is doing a pilgrimage to Mar-a-Lago as penitents to kiss his ring.
Mm-hmm.
Ask for mercy and try to join him in some capacity.
Mm-hmm.
All of them. And that is going to change a lot of things. Because I don't believe in their sincerity any more than you do, I'm sure. But it doesn't matter because the dynamic has changed.
Well, also, it's better to be feared than loved when it comes to those people.
Yes. You know? Yes. And he may have to use one or two as examples to sort of convince the rest that, you know, seditious activities against the American system of government does not pay off. And it shouldn't be difficult. It shouldn't be difficult because they've been so goaded in their disregard for the law and American principles that all of them have exposed their ass and their billfolds. It's not going to be difficult to get Zuckerberg for the Zuckerbucks.
Mm-hmm.
Not going to be difficult at all. Violation of campaign finance laws. He can be fined into oblivion. I'm not talking about this guy's going to jail. And the other thing that Trump should use is the same thing that the Democrats use, which is the threat of legislative action to break up their empires.
Uh-huh.
The Democrats have used that successfully, always. Do it again. Do it from your point. I'm going to break up Facebook into 17 different companies. And let's see how fast they start playing ball. David's talking about Section 230. That one is already obsolete. It's already happening, by the way.
Oh.
What did you find?
I'm very confused. You sent me the link for the show, and let's see. I use the WhatsApp, and your email still hasn't arrived yet.
No shit. That's why I sent it. I sent them both at the same time.
Yeah.
There might be a problem with my email server. So I'll take a look and see if I can fix it. But at least I know that this got to you.
Yeah. The WhatsApp is. I always check that, all the time now.
Yep. So. I'm glad you did, because that way the backup worked. Iran, says Ayo, now has Su-35s as parts kits, and they managed to MacGyver one together.
Wow.
The Israeli F-35s had better watch out.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you imagine being that pilot? They're dragging him to the plane. He's going,
Oh
no.
God, kicking and screaming, kicking and screaming. The guy,
No,
you know,
the,
poor passenger. We didn't speak of this. That poor passenger in the um, was it an Azeri flight? I think it was an Azeri flight
mm,
that the Russians shut down over the Caspian Sea,
mm,
and the poor passenger uh, filming himself doing his confession of faith.
yeah, he didn't see that.
You did or didn't?
Did not.
No. Uh, the confession of faith is something that a Muslim, if he has the time, is like the last rites in
Mm,
Catholicism, but without a priest. And you confess that there is no God but God, and Muhammad is his prophet, and all that jazz. And you kind of recite the creed so that you die at peace with the
mm,
heavens. When a Muslim begins reciting that thing, he knows he's toast.
mm,
Um, I so would not like to be that guy. So would not like to be that guy. People have asked me throughout the week what I thought about it, and uh, for a while I didn't say anything because I told them until I know where the videos are coming, until I know that what I'm looking at is this plane and not something else, which is a problem we have now with the uh, videos coming in from Latakia.
mm.
Are they from Latakia or from some other place 6 years ago? Fuck if you know. We need time to process this and make sure that this shit is for real because there is so much disinformation going on.
Mm,
And finally, you could put it together. And what I could put together is A, it was most fucking definitely a missile. The damage on the tail section and the wings and the fuselage are consistent with shrapnel,
mm,
which is consistent with a missile blowing right next to them, which is what anti-air missiles do. It's not like the movies, like they hit them in the engine or chase their ass. Uh, they explode in close proximity and rain shrapnel that play havoc with electronics and hydraulics.
Well, it's like a shotgun. It's like a giant shotgun firing at
It's
the
like,
plane.
yes, exactly. And it disabled the plane. I finally saw the full cycle over the Caspian,
Mm,
and I cannot imagine what these pilots went through. They obviously had no hydraulics at all. They didn't have ailerons, they didn't have flaps. And they had to maneuver the plane using the engines to go up and then gliding down
mm,
and then thrust the engines up again and then down. And they were doing like a roller coaster
mm.
all across the Caspian. And then they had to do like a couple of
Yeah, they
hits.
did figure eight. They,
And it was their efforts because the only way they could turn one way or another was to thrust one engine and not the other. You know, you put a thrust on the right engine, you turn left. You put thrust on the left engine, you turn right. But watch out, because now you're falling. Because when you do that, you lose ground velocity, so you lose lift, and you start dropping. And if you don't want to drop like a stone, you have to steer the plane and thrust both engines so you go up again. Holy fuck! The fact that
they
there were
all
survivors.
they almost made it, except a wing dipped right before they
Yes,
hit the ground. If that wing hadn't dipped, okay, the The only other time this has been done was been done twice before. Once was with the Japan Airlines 747. That the tail came off and it blew all the hydraulics out. Then the DC-10 in Sioux City, Iowa. Um, the problem is that the plane comes in at like, okay, the DC-10 in Iowa landed at over 200 miles an hour and the plane broke up, but out of all the passengers, 60 survived or something, and the crew survived.
The one I was in Frankfurt, we lost hydraulics. We had to go. We were flying from Rhine Main to Mildenhall,
mm-hmm.
and I'll never forget when the captain called me to let me know that we were not going to Mildenhall because we needed a longer runway. If my asshole fused. Can't tell you the shit. This is serious situation. We've lost hydraulics. We're turning back to Frankfurt. We need a longer runway than Mildenhall. Mildenhall being a military base, of course, the runway is not short. But Frankfurt, Rhine-Main, was the longest fucking runway at the time, was longer than 4 clicks. It is harrowing. And the 707 has several backups, so we didn't lose the flaps. We couldn't get the landing gear lowered.
Mm.
We couldn't do it manually either. We tried. There is a manual crank, but we couldn't. 15 minutes before landing, I was with a flight engineer literally jumping on the fucking crank in the wheelbase. But when you see this plane doing what they did, and the pilots kept going for over an hour doing this.
Mm-hmm.
You have no idea how sorry I am that 2 fuckers died.
Yeah.
Because they deserve to survive. They deserve to make it.
Mm-hmm.
Flying that bird in that condition for over an hour over the sea, with all the system disabled by a Russian missile, it's above and beyond what any pilot would be able to do. 29 people are alive today because of them.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And the Russians, I don't think they wanted to hit the plane. I think some fucking drunken moron with subsisting on vodka and cold borscht shot at anything that moved because he was told there were drones in the area.
Yeah. No, it's I mean, the Russians are just so pathetic. They really are. They don't do anything right, and that apparently genetic need to be an alcoholic is just really, really amazing. What the destruction it's wrought in in Russia.
It is pathetic. You're correct. By the way, speaking of pathetic, I just found that I had this for your appreciation, and I forgot to show it to you. Look at this imbecile.
Wow.
I am the litmus test for what it means to be man. You know what? It sounds like Biden.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't vote for me, you're not black.
Not black. I think he
right?
said, "You ain't black."
Well,
Which,
you ain't black. If you don't vote
which
for
is,
me, you ain't black.
yeah,
If you attack me, you attack science. I am the litmus test for what it means to be MAGA. It's the same illness, isn't it?
there really is.
So that's hopefully the last we hear of this, the last I show you of this speech for the next, say, 20 years. Um, Fox fired Cavuto and the world didn't stop. Why would it? Do you mind Cavuto's firing by any chance?
Oh, I didn't know he was fired. Did they say why?
No, I don't know because I don't care. Um,
He was rabidly anti-Trump. Maybe that had something to do with it.
Maybe that had something to do with it. Um why are the legacy media still keeping the overpaid page readers around? Can somebody muster the courage to fire Stephanopoulos? Uh, I think he's got one foot out already.
Well, see,
ABC had to pay 60 million because of him. He's not going to get last long.
well, it's really hard to figure out what any of these people are going to do because they're all true believers. You know that remember when they used to say the only thing Hollywood cares about is green, meaning money.
Yes.
That's true. That's not true at all. The studios are self-professed activists.
Yeah. Now,
There
now
were
there was a time. There was a time when money was it.
well, they made 18 anti-Iraq war movies, and every single one was a financial bomb. But they kept pumping them out.
Yeah.
They tried every single angle you could imagine, and the finally they had this ingenue, and the big selling point of this movie, she was a veteran, but she had a naked shower scene in this movie, and that was the selling point. And nobody came in and saw it because nobody cared.
Did
What?
who was naked in the shower?
I can't remember her name. She was she's she started out as like a teenie in some TV show, and then she became a movie actress. And
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
but but at the time she was like she was the hot lady. Yeah, I just saw this movie last night. I paid for it. I paid to rent it, called The Substance, and boy, that was a hell of a movie. It was it's about an aging entertainer who starts taking this substance that when you inject yourself with it, a new, younger, perfect self comes out of your back. But the secret
Ooh.
is that each of you can only it's basically two bodies with one mind, and each of you can only be in that body for a week at a time. And the young version has to take fluid from the old version to keep in shape. And what happens is the when she's young, she gets greedy and she starts spending more time than a week, and she starts taking more and more fluid out of her old self until finally the fluid, she's run out of fluid. And they tell her the only way that the fluid can be regenerated is by going back to the old person. But when she comes back, when she's herself as the old person, now she's like chronologically like 300 years old, you know.
Right, because she used it up.
That movie is hated by feminists because the two actresses, it's Demi Moore playing the aging actress, and then this very young, attractive woman named Margaret Qualley, and they're nude throughout most of the movie. The movie was made by a woman, and the movie is a comment on Hollywood's mistreatment of women. So the movie basically spends most of its time with the camera on Margaret Qualley's butt. and feminists have been hysterical with rage about this movie, and it's like, but the woman who made the movie is a feminist. The movie's funny. It's a hilarious black comedy. It's not a drudge to get through. It was over 2 hours long.
You mean it's not preachy?
It's not preachy. It's grand guignol. They don't pull any punches when it comes to the physicality of it. But it was a great movie. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and kudos to Demi Moore, who's got to be 60-ish, because there was a scene she was standing naked in front of the mirror looking at her body and how her body was no longer the body of a young woman.
She looks better now than when she was 20.
Well, from a distance, I never thought Demi Moore was. I always thought she was rather asexual. I was never attracted to her. The younger version, Margaret Qualley, is very, very, very.
Demi Moore got that image with G.I. Jane.
Yeah.
And she bulked up for that movie and all that jazz. Before that, she was a cute-looking gal. After that, I'm with you. It's like an asexual entity.
Also, she tried to stage a comeback with a movie where she played a stripper, and
yes,
she did that thing where she had like the abdomen, the squares on the abdomen and everything.
Yep.
And it was not attractive in the slightest. Also, she got huge breast implants. And in this movie, The Substance, she's standing in front of the mirror. She's still got her breast implants, but everything has sagged downward, and they're showing it. They're showing, and again, I say kudos to her for agreeing to play this part. She was great in it. But it was a great movie, and it's just funny to see angry women complaining about it when the whole point of the movie is that Margaret Qualley is hired only because of her beauty, and she's not a nice person underneath the beauty. She's an ambitious crawling thing that will do anything to anybody to get what she wants. And so it's a cautionary tale.
It's kind of like a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde thing.
Exactly. But very, very black comedy, very stylized, great director, great dialogue. But the fact
you had me at black comedy. If this is done with a sense of humor,
then
they got me.
But the fact that you're apparently not okay, I don't understand any of this, because on the one hand, women need to reclaim their sexuality and be sexual animals and everything. But on the other hand, they're not supposed to appear naked, because then that's exploitative.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, they did
tell it to Sophia Loren and Ornella Muti, you idiots.
Well, last year they did a remake, or maybe it was the first time, of Lady Chatterley's Lover, and the actress and the actor were like, about as naked as you could get in that movie. And oh boy, the Guardian was saying, oh geez, this is fantastic. This is really, they're really giving it to us and everything. But then you have this movie where it's like offensive somehow. It's like, well, what's the difference? Tell me why.
And Lady Chatterley's Lover is not an American movie.
Yeah, it was British.
There you go. That's the difference. For the Guardian, that's the difference.
All I could think of when I watched Lady Chatterley's Lover, where she gives up her life as a baroness and ends up in this hut with the guy, all I could think of was, okay, you're going to have your kid, and then he's going to be out plowing the fields all day. You're going to be taking care of the kid. He's going to come home exhausted, and maybe if he has any energy, he's going to you're going to end up with more kids. You're going to be living in a hut, and things are never going to get better. Your wild love for him is going to dwindle down, and then you're going to be starting to think, why did I do this?
Resentment. Into
exactly.
Quiet resentment. Yeah. But it still appeals to the melodrama loving people amongst us, not me.
Yeah.
The only thing I remember is a cartoon many years ago when there was another Lady Chatterley's Lover movie, and the cartoon was Lady Chatterley with a corset and a very skimpy clothing in bed on her knees, grabbing the headrest and a knife in her back.
Sure.
And the inspector with a pipe looking over says, I feel Lady Chatterley was expecting just about anything but a knife, sir. And I always thought it was funny.
Sure.
But it's the kind of story that it's too melodramatic for me. I think it's great for a female teenager.
Yeah.
My movie report.
No, it was all about, I mean, the head maid in the mansion told all the other maids she gave up everything for her love for this man, so I will not hear a crossword said against her. And it's like, she's only known him a couple of months, and
can you say what a moron?
She's not really thinking quite straight. I don't know. I just, it wasn't for me.
Is that love or infatuation or just being horny?
Yeah, it was lust. I mean, she was a lusty gal, and like there's a scene where he's walking her back to the house, and all of a sudden she takes off her underwear and throws the underwear at him, and he tucks it into his shirt, and then she goes and prances back up to the mansion before they. So they were in the honeymoon phase.
You know what the courtesans used to do to attract male attention?
I have no idea, and I don't know if I want to know.
Well, you probably want to know. It wasn't their underwear, which they probably didn't use, but they would stick their hand into where and grab a handful of crabs and throw them at the potential lover.
Because men want crabs. Men want crabs.
Well, back then apparently they didn't mind. They all had crabs anyway. But do you want some of my crabs? I'll take some of your crabs. That is probably what's going on in Hollywood today, because one of the reasons this was the case is they never bathed. And as we know, a lot of people in Hollywood today are not taking baths. So I figure by now they should be living tenements for all kinds of creatures.
Yeah, I mean that's you look at all these Edwardian romantic paintings, and you realize on a certain level those people really stank.
Oh God, I really don't want to imagine it. Anyway, because we're over time, let me give you my movie recommendation, which is based on entirely a different principle. I did mention a little earlier that, as you know, I sometimes have trouble going to sleep. And it's been kind of like the bane of my existence for decades. And I discovered recently the soporific qualities of certain movies. And I found this one now that is instantaneous. It works faster than Ambien without any side effects. Uh, it's a TV series, English, The Street
Hmm.
miniseries. And it's made of several chapters, all of them occurring on the same street, same drab proletarian street in Manchester, which is, as we all know, the third world. And every chapter has a different story of another subhuman inhabiting one of these townhouses.
Hmm.
The guy who drives over a girl crossing the street because he's distracted trying to watch the titties of a neighbor through the window. The battered wife. Uh, the cuckolded husband. Uh, the twin brother who adopts the identity of his dead twin to escape a drab marriage, but of course, he fools everybody but his wife. And all of this shit. Oh, the soccer player who gets involved in a drug bust and loses his career in Manchester City.
Hmm.
That's all I can tell you. I cannot tell you much more about those because I go through a ritual. I make myself a cup of coffee and I sit to watch the TV and I turn on one of these things and within 10 minutes I'm gone. And more often than not, I wake up and I have a cold cup of coffee in front of me and the TV is gone off because, with the streaming system, I don't know if they do it to you, but
Hmm.
if you're watching for an hour or so, a thing comes up. If you're still watching or keep watching, uh, don't show me this anymore or whatever the crap. Uh, and since I am sleeping, it just goes poof, poof. Great. It is the most boring piece of shit. Subject matter, acting, everything is designed to bore you into a slumber in less than 10 minutes. Strongly recommended for this purpose. Works like a charm, and you won't have any side effects. And if I find another movie like this, I'll let you know. Mm, beautiful. Hey, it had to be good for something.
Sure.
Even Norwegian TV doesn't do this to me. It's bad. It's infuriatingly woke, but it doesn't put me to sleep. This is like a punch in the forehead. Look, punch. My mother comes with a mirror to see if I'm still breathing. Okay, done. That done. Uh, I haven't said anything yet, so let me do it now. Folks, thank you for watching. If you have made it this far, hey, you like us, confess it. So, this is as good a reminder as ever. Uh, please contribute if you can. This is offered for free, but it costs time, it costs resources, and a lot of work to make it happen. So, if you like what you see, drop a tip in the chat if you're in Odyssey. By the way, come to Odyssey first. That helps us. Uh, the link is in all of our outlets out there, so it's very simple. It just takes a click. Subscribe, click on notifications. You know when we're coming on air. You can click on support for a one-time donation. You can click on the donor sign in the chat to send a tip with the chat, or you can click on join and join us with a monthly membership that will give you access to programs for members alone and other stuff, while also helping us greatly keep this in the air. If none of those are to your satisfaction, there's always quadverum.com/support us. Very simple, very straightforward. You can go here, and your contribution there will help us maintain this channel and Quadverum Forum. And if you're in Twitter and you don't want to go anyplace else because, hey, what the hell? We are in X now. You can subscribe to my timeline as a way of helping us here, because that money comes to this as well. And it's at the Brother Lie. And if you go there and you subscribe, it's $5 per month. That will help us with these shows. And I've said as much about money as I wanted to, and perhaps more. So that's it for the fundraising moment. Thomas, have we left any subject?
I don't think so. I think we covered pretty much what we wanted to cover in terms of Doomsday crying being annoying.
Yes, it is, isn't it? I can't stand it anymore. I tune off so easily now. And having done that, then, a last word for us.
Amyloidal.
Hemorrhoidal?
Amyloidal. AMA.
Amyroidal, okay. Amyroidal. It's like an American hemorrhoid. No, amyroidal. Thank you so much. Guys, you know you can put the answer in SQV and help the rest of us who are too lazy to check on Google. Thank you so much, Thomas, and I'll see you next week. Oh, what the fuck? Next week. Happy New Year, my friend. And a Happy New Year to everybody. And I swear to God, I won't ask you for any more money until next year. There, I said it. And Amyroidal, they're already writing it right.
Yep.
They're already writing it right, so they got it. And now that we've done this, thank you so much. Happy New Year, my friend, and everybody else. And I'll see you, the rest of you, tomorrow at Quad Meet at 10:30 p.m. Take care.